third and final part of The Trench now on BBC Two, and there'll be details of a free exhibition at the end of the programme.
By 1916, the early battles of the First World War had all but decimated the professional British Army.
Now on BBC Two, a remarkable new series puts volunteers back in the trenches, experiencing life as the men who saw the sun rise but never knew if they'd live to see it set. And after the programme, details of the free exhibition about this series.
In October 1916, 2 years into the First World War, the British Army was planning one last offensive before the onset of winter. By then, the front line stretched 475 miles all the way from the Belgian coast to the Swiss border, and there were almost 2 million British troops in Europe. Among them were the 10th Battalion of the East Yorkshire Regiment, the Whole Pals, filmed here just days after they survived the bloodbath of the first day of the Somme in July of that year. Men like Private Walter Orst, a Conservative Party agent who lied about his age in order to join up, and Private Isaac Rubin, an office clerk destined to die in 1918. Exactly 85 years later, the BBC recruited 24 volunteers led by a serving army officer to spend 2 weeks in the trenches, reliving the experiences of the 10th Battalion during the build-up to what became known as the Battle of the Ancre. The recruits are also from Hull and are of a similar age and background to the Pals. Like Mark Thompson, a builder's mate, Lance Gadd, a student, and Craig Wright, just days away from his 25th birthday. After undergoing First World War military training, they've arrived in northern France, where they're about to enter an authentically built trench system. Everything that happens to them in the next few weeks will mirror the experience of the Whole Pals, as recorded in official war diaries for the autumn of 1916. On the night of October 20th, 1916, the Whole Pals took over a section of the front line a few miles north of the River Somme.
I know the first time I went in the line, we were scared. We were all scared. And if anyone tells me they weren't scared, he's a damn liar. We were scared all the time.
Come on, you're not dead yet. Come on! As we approached the alarm for the first time, adrenaline was running high, emotions were running high. We just wanted to get in there, settle down, start the job.
It's impossible to describe a barrage of that sort, except that with all the different tones of the shells and the shots coming over, the high winding of machine guns shots or rifle shots, small arms, and then the heavy shells coming over. There was a medley of sounds all mixed together, and not very friendly sort of sounds, you might say.
Words can't describe it. However much training you do, reality suddenly hits you in the face, yeah.
It was unbelievable, it really was. It maybe took us 2 or 3 minutes to actually get onto the front line. But them 2 or 3 minutes felt like 3 or 4 hours. It's just so clear in my mind.
That night, 85 years earlier, the trenches came under heavy bombardment. The War Diary records that the Germans fired gas shells at the British positions.
Putting the gas hood on was a very claustrophobic experience. And then you were in a world of your own. You could sort of hear and see other things, but not very clearly.
Well, the mask we had was like a sack, and in the middle there was a tube which came out. Now, this tube you could only blow out, you couldn't blow in.
Stand to, all along the line.
During a gas attack, men had to stand to in the firing position in case it was providing cover for an assault by German troops.
When you're gassed, it goes right down your throat, into your lungs and your innards, and it feels as if it's pure hell. It feels as if you've got something like a corkscrew turning around in your throat. It's so bad.
Over the coming days and weeks, the men will also have to endure bitingly cold nights, chronic lack of sleep, army food, and constant uncertainty about what will happen next.
We lived hour by hour. You never knew. You saw the sun rise. Hopefully you see it set.
After the chaos of the first night, they take stock with a roll call.
Ackroyd! Sergeant! Baxter! Yes, Sergeant. Bellamy! Sergeant! Walton! Sergeant! Gad! Gad! Who's from Gad? Anyone seen Gad? No answer from Gad, Sergeant.
The War Diary records that as the men went into the front line, one OR or other rank was killed. In all the confusion, the men didn't notice Gad was missing. The news hits them hard.
Yeah, he's a good lad. Real good lad. Just have to look after each other now as best we can. Look out for each other and make sure it doesn't happen again, really. Best we can.
Gad's departure parallels the death of the 1 OR, Private Walter Robinson, a 24-year-old teacher killed on his way up the line. This photograph in a newspaper and a simple grave in northern France is all that remains to mark his life. In any one year, the average infantryman spent only 5 to 10 days in direct combat with the enemy, but he spent months in the trenches surviving as best he could. The men won't face real bullets or danger, but in all other respects they will live as ordinary foot soldiers did in the Great War. After a night without sleep, the remaining men are feeling the cold.
Close, must have been under the weather this morning, so.
Who's that?
Close, mate. He really needs to be somewhere warm.
It's a lot warmer down there. He's frozen through to the core, just needs to thaw out a bit. The dugout's slightly warmer. We'll just get his blood flowing again this morning, and then he'll probably be all right once the sun's up. But he's a slightly older soldier than the rest, so the cold's got into his bones a bit more, I think.
The cold is also getting to the younger recruits.
I'm just suffering from a lot of the training we did in Catterick, like I twisted my foot, and that's really, really playing up now, and especially on the long marches, and that's really, really hurting, because I'm full of cold, and and my sleeping best. Let's all come together.
But as the sun comes out, the temperature rises and there's a change of mood.
And the soldiers who originally did this, they had a lot harder. They had bullets flying over their heads. I haven't got any of that. I've got a bit of cold. I think it was just a bit miserable this morning, and as I get out of control.
Army regulations required officers to carry out morning foot inspections.
How's the old heel? Both heels have still got little blisters, but they're alright.
And is that hurting at the moment?
Not at the moment,
Every aspect of trench life was conducted according to a detailed daily routine laid down in Army manuals. Whole chapters were devoted to measures to prevent chilblains and the dreaded trench foot, including the application of special oils.
You couldn't get your boots on. They were frozen hard. You know, your feet sort of froze with your boots, you know, your boots froze hard. And this oil, whatever you want to put it on, saved your feet getting trench feet.
The men are in a platoon of 3 sections, each led by an experienced corporal.
Wilson 9 till 10. Womack 10 till 11. Ackroyd 11 till 12. You hand over to Forster, who's 12 till 1.
The trench is safer from attack during daylight, but the men must still be vigilant. While 1 in 3 are on sentry duty at night, it's 1 in 10 during the day. The sentries use periscopes to keep watch over no man's land.
You would have two mirrors at an angle, and one would show that, and you would get the reflection down there, periscope, and you could see. During the day you'd use that, but then again, if you used that and the sun shone in it, that was gone, because somebody'd have a shot at it.
Get your tea, then get out of the way, and let the next man come along.
That's worth it, Glenn, as well. Make room for the next man.
God. I was on this last night. Oh, that's crappy. I wanted to drink it up for it in my boots. Which will warm up easy.
Drink this lot quick, grab some more of the Dixies, we've got to go back to bring out the breakfast.
Oh, me of little faith, thinking that we're only going to get tea. There's food on the way.
Bacon and bread is on its way, about a minute behind me, sir.
Right.
Breakfast is prepared in the support trench and is carried 120 yards up the communication trench and into the front line.
Hurrah! Parade for Rosberg Jam going. Yeah!
So many men were undernourished before the war that the average British soldier gained 1.5 stones in weight during their training. But food at the front was never more than basic.
Colin Wilson seat.
Oh, it's the bomb.
Privates Wilson and Garner have drawn the short straw. They've been put on latrine duty. The latrines consist of wooden seats over metal buckets.
Sure. See you up, lads. Thank God we've all got cold.
There's no sanitation at all, and used to stink like hell, but you couldn't do anything about it. You couldn't just get them out the trench and go anywhere. If you got them out the trench, you were a dead man.
Letters are the men's only form of communication with the outside world.
It's to the wife, it's dear Mandy. Well, I've been here on the front for 2 days. It's hell, cold, wet, food, open brackets including horse, is crap.
I'm missing you so much. I think of you lying in your bed, snuggled and warm, whilst I'm here shivering, cold, wet and isolated. Please excuse my writing, it's the conditions. I'm missing the physical side of that, the wife. Just being able to touch her, really. I've got a couple of children, missing them. It's just like being in prison, really. You just miss being able to get up and go and make a drink and turning the fire up and getting a walk. It's daft little simple things.
Oh, it's all gone wrong.
That's flush.
A spirit of camaraderie has developed between the men, and they've given each other nicknames. Some close friendships have already been formed.
We've teamed up because we're similar size.
Similar sense of humour.
Yeah, similar sense of humour.
Just a good laugh. Just okay for a laugh.
We have a good time, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
That's the
Try to,
main.
don't we?
Try to. Get into trouble together as well. I'm not saying we do that by nature, but
Using your initiative.
yeah, it's using your initiative, and it's the way we
Teamwork.
Yeah, that's the main. We try out, don't we,
Yeah.
so we can benefit.
We'll smuggle a bit of alcohol. Just make sure the couple's not
Contraband.
see it.
It's only for medicinal purposes when it's really cold. Which was last night, wasn't it?
Yes.
Recruiting men from the same city into PALS battalions helped them bond. Hull pals Walter Orst and Walter Silverwood soon teamed up. They shared a stubborn streak and the nickname Walter Mule. The hours for rest, as laid down in the trench manual, are between noon and 4, the safest and the warmest time to sleep.
There was just room to lie down. We'd have to use our coats as covering, but we would just lie down. There was no different from lying anywhere else on the soil or not in a bed. You'd have to lie as best you could and get as comfortable as you could. And if you were near anyone, well, you were huddling up beside other people.
Across no man's land, the Germans were familiar with and able to disrupt the British trench routine. Trench combat was nothing new. It dated back to medieval siege warfare. The unique feature of the First World War was the mechanization of the weapons and the scale of the killing. The platoon occupies just 60 yards of the front line, but this pattern was repeated across the 475 miles of trenches occupied by Britain and her allies. Taft Gillingham, a military advisor and First World War specialist, is the platoon sergeant.
Just come down from battalion. We're going to move out in 15 minutes.
Great, sir.
Men need to be at the exit on the sunken lane by 7/5 hammer.
By 7/5 hammer. Yes, sir.
According to the regimental diary, on the 21st of October 1916, the battalion was relieved by the 16th West Yorkshire Regiment. The front line has to be defended at all times, so the relief troops must be in position before the men can leave for the farms or billets where they rest when they're not in the line. At this time of night, when the troops were known to be on the move, the enemy would often target the communication trenches.
stand, easy. All right, gentlemen, well done, your first blooding in the trench. A couple of minor points, noise discipline, also wearing of helmets. I don't know, those are the few of you who saw me go to use the latrine, my helmet never came off. There's far too many of you wandering around in the trench without a helmet. You get a stonking like the one we had on the way in and the one on the way out without your helmet, believe me, you'll know about it.
Helmets had only been introduced in March 1916, 7 months before the Hull Pals began preparing for the Battle of the Ancre.
Equipment never to be more than arm's reach if you're told to take it off. Otherwise, unless you're told specifically to take it off, it's on you all the time.
The men have now done a 36-hour stretch with little or no sleep. After tonight's 2-mile march from the trench to the billet in full kit, they're exhausted. Private John Pyra is close to collapse. But the others rally round and share their precious chocolate ration with him.
Oh dear.
Right, Pyra, you're not looking particularly with it. If you're going to fall over, do it in a neat heap. Any questions? No. Good. Platoon, attend, jump. Platoon, fall, out. Sergeant? Sergeant?
One of Pyra's comrades immediately helps him off with his equipment.
Whenever we were together in those circumstances, we were always very close to one another. We were one body of brothers, you might say.
In the billet, the men are served curry, which by the time of the First World War was an established dish in the British Army.
The best meal always meant to have flour, isn't it? Yeah.
It's funny how a bit of straw can make a place seem like home, isn't it?
It seems like heaven, doesn't it? Yeah. Which it is comparatively.
After a hot meal, Private Pyra is starting to recover.
If we sleep here tonight, we'll sleep. If we were in the trench tonight, we wouldn't sleep. No sleeping at all. I mean, if you even attempt to go to sleep in the trench, you start to freeze, basically. So you've just got to keep going. The thought of another night without sleep. I mean, you don't get the best night's sleep on straw. I thought this was tough until I went into the trench. But the prospect of another night's sleep, just running your reserves down and down and down, and it's a test of how far you can go, really.
A recruitment poster of the day stated that only men aged between 19 and 38 could join up. Like many men at the time, John Robinson lied about his age in order to get in.
Speaking as someone who has now reached, well, no, 38. Actually 40. I've always thought, could I actually hack military training? And people like John here and some of the other lads who are in their early 20s, there's a certain amount of pride in feeling that you can at least keep up with them.
Whoa.
The platoon is billeted in a stable block that was used by British troops during the Great War.
Private Womack!
Private Womack has volunteered to be the officer's Batman.
You're going to come down to the line later with the company transport and come up with the reserves. And you're going to remain behind under direction of Captain Ingram and carry on some duties as your newly appointed Batman.
Thanks, Lieutenant. Right. So, Womack, you're stood down. You can ditch all your kit and everything. I'd like you to go up to our billet. You know where our billet is? Up in the loft? Yes. You'll find there my field boots, which are in serious need of a good clean, removing mud, and then polish. There is a polishing kit next to them. If you'd like to do that for me first. Sir. Jolly good. Fall out. Carry on.
By 1916, not all the officers were drawn from the upper classes. But the tradition of officers' servants persisted. Even the most junior officer was entitled to the services of a batman in the field.
It's got its perks, I suppose. You get let off, you have to do sentry on a night when it's freezing and things like that. You get a little stick off the lads, like. Always been working class anyway, that's how it's always been, hasn't it? It's schooled by the toffs or whatever.
Right, come on, get yourselves outside, get felling. Now! Move!
The War Diary records that the whole PAL spent part of the 22nd training for the forthcoming attack.
Left wheel.
Training takes place well behind the rear lines, out of enemy artillery range. Named after its inventor, the Lewis gun was introduced in 1915. It was the first lightweight portable machine gun used by the British Army.
The rounds, 47 rounds in each magazine. A good marksman on the Lewis gun, 150 rounds in 1 minute. That's not just firing it, but it's aiming and hitting the target 150 times. Okay, gun stopped. What's the problem? Immediate action. You bring your hand up, you feel what it is. Change mag. Fresh mag is then inserted on by the number 2.
Number 1 was a Lance Corporal. Number 2 was me, and carried the spare parts. 3 was a loader. 4 and 5 were loaders for the magazines as we emptied them.
Pull the gun into your shoulder and that'll prevent the bipod from falling forward.
We've got high hopes for you, because nobody else wants to carry the thing.
Are you ready? Fire.
As the only man prepared to carry the weapon, Forster becomes the platoon's official Lewis gunner. The specialist Lewis gunners in the 10th Battalion would play a major role in the forthcoming battle. The platoon will spend the rest of the day in the trenches carrying out essential repairs. But they'll have to wait in the support line until darkness falls, when it's safer to move up to the front.
Make yourself as comfortable as you can. Slightly more space to spread out here than there is in the front line, so make yourself comfortable.
At this stage of the war, the British Army had nearly 2 million mouths to feed in France. Catering for them was a major operation, and the main meals were prepared in mobile field kitchens behind the lines. Although the support trench was always some distance behind the front, it was still in enemy artillery range.
At least that way we won't all get cracked at it. Okay, guys, okay.
Oh, easy.
Nice one. Is that better?
You'd get what they could get hold of and no more. You might get a few spuds. Nothing apart from that. Bit of cabbage perhaps. If you were lucky you might get a Swede out of a field somewhere if the farmer hadn't moved up. You know, all food was bad, very bad.
It's smiling at me. I think it's still breathing. It's lower intestine. Check it. Check it, but don't splash me with it.
That looks like we're going to be moving out any minute now. There won't be time to put your packs back on. You'll have to grab your packs and your overcoats. We're about to relieve others in the first line.
Tonight they're serving us a working party and will only do a short shift in the front line.
Yes, sir, lad.
Darkness allowed the men to move around more freely, but they were still vulnerable to attack. Tonight is the first opportunity for Fawcett to fire the Lewis gun in the trench.
Against the white sword. Right at the tree, one o'clock. Keep back!
Right, get on with putting this alternate position up, because we've obviously been probing to find out where we've got the gun.
Lieutenant Ewell orders the Lewis gun repositioned.
What's the gun?
You never fired a magazine from the same position because the Germans would take a line on that and a line on that, and that would be marked as a machine gun position, and that was the invitation for half a dozen whiz-bangs. And you would get those whether you wanted them or not.
Whiz-bangs were the nickname given to 77mm German shells because of the distinctive sound they made. 5.9-inch shells, which exploded in a cloud of black smoke, were known as coal boxes, or Jack Johnsons, after a famous black boxer. Having completed the necessary repairs just after midnight, the platoon withdraw from the trench to the billet.
Darling lads, wakey, rise and shine. Lovely day out there. Breakfast time, lad. Jungle, just show right up there, mate. No.
I think I've got ice water now, not blood.
You have a nice sleep then, lads?
Oh, yeah. I like sleeping in fridges.
I haven't been for a shit for about 2 days. Yeah. 2 or 3 days. The toilet stinks. I'm eating smaller portions.
You're basically aiming from one food break to the next. You know, you're going from maybe breakfast, if you make it to dinner, you're okay, and then you get to dinner, you get to tea, and then you just wait for the night and get to breakfast again, and that's another day gone, you know. It's basically like that at the moment. But yeah, I suppose the one thing that does get is if they serve you something up like the other night with the sprouts, it does demoralise you a bit. curry was nice the other night. Wouldn't mind that a few more times.
Even when they're resting at the billet, the men must shave every day or risk a punishment charge.
Right, gentlemen, today's activities, you'll be pleased to know, do not involve going up the line at any time. We will be having a pay parade this morning, followed by a late night pass for some R&R. We now have a trained specialist in the platoon. Private Fawcett, fall in front of me. Congratulations, you are now a qualified Lewis gunner, Private Fawcett. Make certain you get it sewn on correctly. The sergeant will tell you where to put it.
The battle the whole pals were training for was scheduled to take place the following night. Although today's a rest day, the men have to fill out their wills in the last page of their pay books, just as the pals would have done.
When you actually start by yourself and you actually think about what you're putting down, it certainly means more. Well, I would imagine the chaps at the time, it meant even more to them. It must have been, you know, it's that regular event to see people, their friends and people like that killed. It must have meant something to them. It just strikes it home about being at home with your family and that. It just really sort of drives it home, really. Frightening. Very frightening.
Baxter!
Thank you, Maxim.
We're sending you to the local brothel.
Thompson, turn round. Like a big kid, isn't he? A little kid. Look at his hands. Can't take him nowhere.
Fawcett!
You know that you're now entitled to proficiency pay, that you are a Lewis gunner. You'll receive an extra 4 francs, Fawcett.
Thank you, sir.
Infantrymen were paid 7 shillings or 9 French francs a week, equal to about £18 today, with extra pay for qualified specialists such as Lewis gunners.
I could have got a shave this morning, Thompson.
I've been waiting for my pay, so I can buy some more racers. That's me excuse.
I'm sure it won't wear.
We'll see. If not, I might not be going out tonight. I'll be on guard duty.
They're present and correct, sir.
Okay. Before you go, also, these are our new Italian flashes. We'll show you how to sew them on later.
Thompson!
Some invitations you've not shaved this morning, huh?
Yes, sir.
Why is that?
Been waiting to get paid, sir, so I can buy some racers.
Lame excuse, Thompson. That doesn't cut any
Yes, sir.
answer to me. I don't like unshaven men on my pay parade.
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
For being unshaven on parade, Thompson is given field punishment number 2.
What Thompson is about to do is to double right the way around this square 5 times in full kit with his rifle above his head, without stopping, without puffing, without wheezing. He's annoyed the company commander. I can tell.
With belts, bullets, bottles and tools, a First World War soldier's kit weighed about 65 pounds. His rifle added a further 9 pounds.
Right then, Thompson. Right turn. Is that right?
No, sir.
Good. Don't piss me off further. Rifle above your head, both arms. There you go. 5 times right the way around the yard, and I mean right the way round. Come on. Pick your feet up.
Special punishments were reserved for use in the field. There was field punishment number 2, and in more serious cases, field punishment number 1, which involved being tied to a wheel in the crucifixion position and fed on bread and water.
Keep going. Deep breath. All around the corner.
The discipline was very, very strict indeed. We were marching in a squad, and all of a sudden an order came, halt that squad. And there was an order, that man improperly dressed in a woolen cap, that was me,
double up to me. And I had to double up to this man. He was a regimental sergeant major. He was the one really imposing the discipline. He said, "Why do you come into my camp improperly dressed?" And I said, "I lost my peak cap when I put my head out of the railway train." Put this man on the charge for not looking after government property.
Right in there, all this stuff off, all this stubble disappeared, all right? Good. Sergeant.
Sergeant.
Cheerio, way you go.
Sergeant.
Well, that's all. Well done, Thompson.
Even at the height of the war, soldiers spent more time out of the front line than they did in it. With the prospect that they will see action the next time they're in the trenches, the recruits have to sew special flashes onto their uniforms.
When we're going to battle or we're going to fight, you take these E-Shocks ones off and you put these on, and so we can't be identified by, you know, the enemy. We all talk about, you know, the next time we go in, next time we go into the trench, you know, if we're going to lose any more, who's going to be next? You know, could it be me? Could it be, you know, could it be my upper? Could it be, you know, my whole section? We know that somebody's going to go, obviously, because, you know, it's a battle, but, you know, we don't want to lose anyone, but because it's war, we're bound to lose someone. I know this is not, it's not actually real, but it's getting real by the moment. From our point of view, it's definitely getting more real. It's for me anyway.
During the war, French villagers set up makeshift cafes, known as estaminets for British soldiers billeted nearby. The men got the chance to spend some of their hard-earned pay.
I produce you 3 glasses.
3 wick?
I keep it warm in the cupboard.
Private David Nolan has already acquired a reputation as the platoon whinger.
I've just had enough for the walking, my feet are aching. So I just don't want all these marchings anymore. My feet are just had it, my knees had it. No, my knee's gone. My feet will be alright when you're sitting, but I mean when you're moving around, start up again. Oh, why not?
Jonathan Baxter is a committed Christian and has been nicknamed John the Baptist. At 19, he is engaged to be married, but doesn't believe in premarital sex.
You either look or you don't look. You know, peeking over our shoulders. You sure you don't want to have a...
I've already looked.
Oh, that's okay.
Pass on to that tail then, Dave.
A bit saucy, aren't they?
They would be for the time. Well, these are they're a bit sort of Victorian though, aren't they?
Oh, he's saying from an artistic point of view, of course.
I'm going to go... That's in the taste, well, in the taste. So you didn't find them interesting at all?
Oh, I found them very interesting. You won't get in trouble with your fiancé for looking at that.
Oh, I know.
Ever since the training which took place at Catterick Barracks, there's been an increasing rivalry between the 3 sections of men who make up the platoon. Private Thompson is in 2 section, the Slackers, who've dubbed themselves Easy Company.
Right then, lads, there's Travel Company. Easy. We like it easy. Easy.
Easy Company first begun because when we was back at Gatwick, we had to do this map reading, and the corporate we had liked to set things easy, so we cheated. So Easy Company now is just it's a rebel of anybody who wants to just take life in its own stride, and we just go out, do our job, and then after that we just take it easy. They all join Easy Company. Everybody joins Easy Company in the end. That's the way it is.
Listen in! Yay! No, will you, coach?
Early the next morning, the men return to the trenches as the hour of the battle draws near. They will spend the day in the support trench before moving up to the front at dusk.
We're kept completely in the dark as to what's going to happen. One of Sarge's very favourite sayings is hurry up and wait. And basically that's what we're doing. We're just sat around waiting. We don't know whether we're going to go up to the front line later on today, tonight, tomorrow. Literally we're like military waiting, which is an indefinite period.
During 4 years of war, soldiers in the trenches had to endure all kinds of weather conditions with very little protection from the elements.
We dug holes inside the trench to get into it out of rain and stuff. And if it continued to rain like it did used to do for some reason, I don't know, you used to get proper wet through with your boots and all. And if it's winter time, of course, you get a lot of rain and you couldn't get your boots on next morning, they were frozen hard. You'd have a ground sheet, a rubber ground sheet. They were very useful ground sheet, even for covering you up. If you were throwing it down, you could just throw it over your shoulders and save you a bit, you know.
Trenches built in the chalky soil of the Somme had relatively good drainage, unlike those in Flanders, which could become mired in mud. After going absent without leave, Private Nolan has been found wandering around behind the lines.
Hi, coming through.
He now has to face Lieutenant Ewell in the officer's dugout.
Reporting. Nolan, our platoon commander will be glad to see you. Wait here, you two.
In you go.
Good, sir. Son, get in. Private Nolan, sir. Here's the chaps who caught up with him. Oh, in you go. In you go.
Right, Nolan, I assume you know why you've been brought up here. You've been caught malingering at the back of the lines while everybody else has been working hard in the rain. I have to inform you that the decision has been taken to transfer you out of this platoon. Since you arrived in France, all you have done is whinge, malinger, and be a pain in the arse to absolutely everybody in this platoon. You've really, really not played the game the way the rest of the guys are. They're digging in and working and trying their hardest. You've let them down, you've let yourself down, and above all, you've let the memory of the guys we're supposed to be representing down. And for that reason, you're being sent back home. You are now out of this platoon, and you are going back to Blighty.
Disgusting.
Go on ahead. On
Well, if I've been
out to your left,
having that.
The solicitor will be in touch. I didn't see a great deal of him. Thank God he wasn't in our section. I think we'd have all strung him up by now. But yeah, everyone else is doing their best. You know, sometimes under difficult situations, and he's made a mockery.
I think with Jabba, there was never a bright side. There was always a problem for every answer. I don't know, I mean, maybe it's just as we're dealing with things, but unfortunately it just went against everything what we're trying to do here.
Today is Craig Wright's birthday, but it doesn't excuse him from taking his turn on sentry duty.
I'm 25, so I've reached my quarter century, and it just makes you think, really. Every year when I have a birthday, I just stop for a second and think, you know, where are you with your life now? And it's a time when you miss all your friends and family, though. Woke up this morning, you know, you expect people around you and that, and you know, they weren't there.
Soldiers regularly receive parcels from home containing fruit, chocolate or cake.
Number 1 section.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Let's make a wish.
Yeah, I'm Welch, he's still here.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Hope you all enjoy it.
Oh, thanks.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Larry. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip hip! Hooray!
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Smashing. After you, Will.
Go on then, go on then. Yeah, absolute star first. Thank you.
Oh, you're so generous with your cakes, Mr.
Ta.
Several times a week, one of ours would go and just fly around, and in a minute or two, a Jerry's would go and they'd have a battle. They'd go around and turn and twist and people were really good watching them sometimes.
I'm in front of it! I'm in front of it!
I tried once or twice. I thought, next one come over, I'll fire over there if the plane's here. Something got past me. I fired it well in front of it because they travel that quick, you know. Man, I don't was really good. Used to fly just above the heads, as you might say, firing the shells, machine guns, you know, just firing down all the time.
At the start of the war, the newly established Royal Flying Corps had 63 planes in France. Just 4 years later, they had 22,000.
Section commanders. Right, word's just come through from battalion. We're going to move down the line and take over the first line. We're taking it over because we are going to go for the big push.
In the morning, sir?
Yep. Let the men know. Pass it down through the sections now.
All right, lads, orders have come through. Okay, we're moving into the front line tonight. We're assaulting the German position in the morning, so we're going over the top. Probably first, probably at dawn. Okay. So, get some rest. Okay, I assume we'll be moving up to the front line as soon as it's dark enough. We'll probably go over at dawn.
Brilliant. Corporal, can't Section 1 just go first? Break our fall.
Section 3 should go first.
Yeah,
the best one.
Bantams to the ready. Yeah. Sharpen teeth tonight, lads. Leave your rifles, we won't be using them.
Now the men know what they face in the morning, they're in a reflexive mood.
How about you then, actually, defining moment in your life? Best thing that you can remember?
Apart from being tipped 10 quid. Yeah, that's my big tip I got. It's got to be meeting Cindy, I think, really.
Yeah?
Yeah, it'd have to be. Get shot if I didn't say that. Get shot if I don't, get shot if I don't.
Can't lose. Good answer. How about you? But they birthed my daughter. Midwife was late, but I managed to hold her. About 2 or 3 minutes before the midwife came in and went, ah! But yeah, held her for a first breath. Big buzz.
Ready to go? Come on, let's go.
You ain't in a letter then? You ain't in a letter home, son?
Nine of them there. Field service postcard. No letters tonight.
Okay,
yeah. Last chance to write home. Give them an hour and I'll collect them back in again. I'll get them censored and sent off.
Name and address only on that side.
Yeah.
Okay. You cross off anything that doesn't apply. You can write in the dates where applicable there. You can sign it and you can date it. Nothing else. If you write anything else on there, it's thrown away.
Designed to protect military secrets, field service postcards were the last chance for men to send a brief message home before going into battle.
Every time before we set off, I say to myself in my prayers, dear God, I'm going in great danger. Would you please guard me and help me to act like a man? Please bring me back safe. And I used to go out there without a fear.
With two opposing armies of similar size and sophistication equally well dug in, assaulting the enemy's trenches in the hope of overcoming and ejecting them from their position was the only way to advance the war.
Stand to, ready to fix, crouch on the fire steps.
Half an hour before dawn in the planned attack, Lieutenant Ewell calls for stand to. Battle police will be on hand to prevent anyone from deserting. Back in July, on the first day of the Battle of the Somme, there had been huge casualties. But the 10th Battalion, the whole PALs, were held in reserve. From that day on, they were known as the Lucky 10th. Now, in October 1916, as winter drew in, they were finally on the verge of a full-scale assault.
Find out for yourself what our volunteers experienced and more about the soldiers who inspired this series in the free trench exhibition at the Imperial War Museum, London. For information, call 08700 100 150 or visit www.bbc.co.uk/history, where you can walk through a virtual trench and see veterans.